What up, everyone? I'm Rob Araujo. I'm here interviewing with Aditya Veera right now for the Stalwarts of Music podcast. I'm about to come to India in the spring, touring with Jack Gardner, and I'm looking forward to a refreshing conversation with my boy Aditya. Stay tuned.
Hi, Rob. Namaste. Welcome to Stalwarts of Music with Aditya Veera. It is such an honor to have you on the show. Which part of the world are you in? And I see that you are in a wonderful looking studio setup.
Thank you, man. Just in my little home studio here in Los Angeles right now, North Hollywood. Yeah,
Wonderful.
man, it's a pleasure to be on the show here with you. I'm looking forward to talking about my background, my music, music in general, and of course,
Yeah.
Indian food and what I gotta eat when I come to India in the spring next year, man. Wow.
Yeah, we have a lot of ground to cover. So let's just dive straight into it. Having gone through your music, I mean, having listened to your music for several many years now, your harmonic choices often imply jazz vocabulary without overtly stating it, right? So, how consciously did you strip away from traditional jazz signifiers while preserving its intellectual depth in terms of the music that you put out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of that comes from my background. I was classically trained on piano
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, and then I went to school and actually studied biology.
Wow.
So I never went through like a formal jazz degree or anything, but I had been playing jazz saxophone in middle school and high school and was learning how to improvise there and listening to a lot of like classic, bebop music, Charlie Parker, Dexter Gordon, Dizzy Gillespie, just like a lot of the greats of that era.
Right.
And when I was in college, just for fun, I started moving more towards jazz piano because a lot of the music I was listening to was more piano music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because I had spent so much time practicing piano, so much more time than saxophone,
Oh,
certain things just came a little easier to me. But I never had like formal training in jazz piano, so I kind of just jumped in and figured things out for myself and took from the records I was listening to the stuff that I
mm.
could. And so maybe my playing is different than someone who went through a formal jazz training process
Right.
on piano. But I was really only doing like jazz piano for a couple years before moving mostly to like hip hop, R&B, like kind of this new style of
Got it.
more electronic production
Right.
with piano in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't bake as long in the oven on jazz piano as a lot of other cats out
Mm-hmm.
there who could probably cut me, but because of that, maybe I have like my own sound and my own approach to the instrument and to jazz.
Right.
But I think like listening a lot to jazz was the biggest thing, and listening a lot to really good records, like a bunch of really good records,
Mm-hmm.
like Portrait in Jazz, just like a lot of Robert Glasper stuff, a lot of stuff from when I was
Nice.
playing saxophone, like classic standards, just like looking up, taking a standard I was playing and just looking at all the different recordings and finding, certain ones that I liked.
Mm.
Um, and when you listen a lot to something, it translates in the way you play, the way you think about music, the way you write music, because that's how we write music. We
Mm.
write based off of what we heard. Like creativity is more of like a reinterpretation of the the pieces of the music you've heard in your mind, and
Right.
you're the one who's like putting them together in new ways and over new chords and all this other stuff. But if you've like listened to the classic stuff, man,
Mm.
then it's gonna be in your vocabulary no matter what.
Totally. One amazing thing about the modern set of musicians that include the likes of someone like Masigo or someone like Anomaly and uh, who else did I have in mind? Haywire, right? So and of course yourself. Uh, your piano tone sits quite well inside some of these dense electronic textures, right? So, what is it about this generation of musicians as to how much time are you all devoting in terms of designing these piano sounds versus composing the music itself, because there are so many different layers involved, right? Like when we listen to music with loops and multiple layers.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be a mistake to separate sound design and composition,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Because music is just sound. Like that's
Right.
all that music is, right?
Mm. Mm.
So I think a lot of musicians, a lot of students of music, people who start trying to learn music, try
Mm-hmm.
to break it down in whatever terms they can understand and learn and recognize patterns.
True.
So they look at the notation, they look at the notes you're playing, they look at the chords you're playing, they look at
Right.
the song structure. But really, what's making any song good is the sound, right? So it's the
Mm.
structure
Mm.
and the sound with that. And certain
Sure.
sounds lend to different kinds of parts, certain sounds lend to different kinds of like song forms and music. So, like anything you would do that you're learning about in a jazz program or a classical program or anything like that, it
Mm-hmm.
starts with the sound,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
I think nowadays because um music is so electronic now, even people who play jazz, like Emmett Cohen is famous partially
Yeah,
from
of
his
course.
live stream on YouTube, which is only something possible with some level of like electronic
Mm.
music, like electronic technology, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like even jazz records, man, are electronic music in the sense that they're using
Mm.
technology in the creation of that record. Like the record is different than the live performance. Like the entire concept of a record is electronic music, and over the last like 80 years there's just been so many tools being added to the kit
Of
of like
course.
how we can make sound, how we can record sound, how we can
Right.
do whatever.
Mm.
And so maybe 40 years ago, if you sat down with like an electronic piano, you would be like, oh, this sounds nothing like it's nowhere near close to a real piano.
Right.
But today, you can get something that is a little closer to a
Mm.
piano, right? At least you can trick people into thinking that if you know how to play and know how to produce and know how to mix and stuff. And in some ways, it's better because
Yeah.
the sound is more consistent in a way. You can take advantage of the new
Mm.
technology we have today to make music. I don't think any of those people would say that that is better than a real piano, of course. It's
Mm.
just
Mm.
it's just different. It's a whole different instrument. And I
Right.
think when you're playing a keyboard, you have to think about sound design, right?
Mm.
Because if you
Mm.
sit down at a piano, it's a piano, man. Like the sound is there.
Yeah.
You literally can't do anything to change the sound yourself, like barring going into the instrument, like unscrewing things, putting felt in it, like doing crazy shit. But it's like with a keyboard, you can go through a million different sounds. You can mix them in different ways. You can do all sorts of tricks with it. And so
Mm.
why not? Like you have to take advantage of that to match what you can do on the actual instrument. Um, so I think that like ultimately for me, and I know this is maybe the case for a lot of other artists, maybe not for others, but for me, a lot of it starts with the sound, right? I find a new sound, a new piano sound that I like, and I just start messing with it, and certain things come out while I'm messing with it that I hear and I think sound good, and then I make songs around that. But then I get bored of that sound and I switch to another sound, and then I write different things. So it's like this whole cycle of, oh, I'm super excited about this sound that I have, let me see a bunch of things I can do with it before I get
Mm.
bored and, move on to the next sound.
Well, talking about you having an eye for different sounds, what is that piano sound that you're inclined towards right now? Could you possibly demonstrate to our listeners?
I don't have the keyboard the sound pulled up right now, but
Okay.
on a lot of my like loading EP, for example, I was
Right.
using Keyscape. I still think Keyscape is like really incredible.
Mm.
It has so many options and the synthesis goes so deep, especially when you pair it with Omnisphere. Like
Right.
you can go into all these little controls and really go crazy. I think maybe it's the
Mm.
best like overall piano plugin out there.
Right.
Um, but then, of course, I kind of want to get into making plugins too, so I'm trying to check out a
Oh,
bunch of other
nice.
people's piano plugins. The one I've been really loving lately and using on a lot of stuff lately is actually this piano plugin called Shearwater Piano, Shear
Wow.
Water,
Okay.
by one of my friends who lives in the UK called Imagiro. And it's just like he
Mm.
coded the plugin and recorded the samples and added a few little features that are really unique. And I think with plugins, man, just changing the workflow and adding one or two little things is enough to make it an entirely like new experience for me.
Mm,
Like
mm,
even though maybe a lot of the controls in this plugin are also in Keyscape,
right,
just the way they're done imparts a slightly different sound. It's almost like, yes, both of these wines are from Bordeaux, but they're slightly different. Like this one is a 2014, this one's a 2012. Like this one was harvested earlier in the season. You know what I mean? It's all these little kind of subtle changes that
right.
when you're tapped in, you can like actually appreciate that. Like I
Mm,
appreciate when I find something that just has like a slight different color to it, like a slight different feel when you're working with it. The Imagira has two of those pianos.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I've also been recording a lot recently on like actual pianos too. I'll be doing sessions and working more with other producers, and they'll have an upright in the spot. And it's like same kind of stuff. I'm starting to dive into that world of like real instrument, real mics, real room, like,
Mm,
and then how you process that.
right.
You can have such a crazy range of sounds when
Mm,
you go to like everyone's different setup and they have like a different set of those things. It's just like almost like like gambling. You
mm,
know what I mean? Like
mm,
you pull up to the session, you're like, oh, this piano might be the one, or it might be ass, and I'll hate the session. But you kind of never know. It's kind of fun. A
mm.
fun thing about like real instruments versus plugins, but I think both have their uses.
Yeah, but, I was having this interesting conversation a couple of months back during the Steven Wilson tour, and my dear friend Adam Holzman was here for the show with Steven, and we were talking on similar lines about the advent of them trying out, some of the first range of MIDI technology. He was probably one of the first pioneers, along with Herbie and a
Yeah,
couple of other cats, who brought this tradition down to the world of music, right? So yeah, if I may ask you that, right, like you having listened to a lot of rich classical and jazz vocabulary, and then uh, analog versus digital, right? That's like the go-to question someone might ask you. But maybe I will rephrase it in a certain way. What are some of the pros that work really well for you in terms of the analog world, and maybe you can speak a little bit about the digital world as well, when it comes to your music per se. Yeah.
I think maybe a good analogy is having a conversation with your friend in person
Uh-huh.
versus texting them,
Right.
right?
Right.
So obviously they're kind of both doing the same thing, trying to do the same thing, more
Sure.
or less communication,
Right.
but maybe a lot of people feel that a conversation in person is more intimate. You can get
Mm,
deeper. You can get a lot more detail. You can see the person's facial expressions, their body
of course.
language while you're speaking. The setting also makes a difference, like what kind of room you're in, if you're sitting or standing, like
Mm,
if there's other people around, what the context of that conversation is in the night. Maybe it's like you're pre-gaming before going out to a show, or maybe it's like you go
sure.
to a session. Um, but texting is super convenient, man. And you
Mm,
can craft your responses in a different way than
mm,
you could if you were on the spot there. Kind of like you can take what someone says and like kind of think about it, reflect on it, come up, devise the exact thing you want to say, and
yeah.
then send it,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And so I kind of see that as analog versus digital,
mm-hmm,
right? Because
mm-hmm,
in like analog, there's just like so much more detail when I sit down and play like an analog piano. Like so many more things could happen in terms of the sound I can produce when
mm,
I sit down on a real instrument. And there is that like immediacy. There's that sense of like the instrument becomes an extension of you and you're not stuck in like the computer or in like, I got to turn all this stuff on. I got to make the headphones the right volume. I got to, no, it's just you sit down and you play. It's the same shit every time. You know what I
mm,
mean?
mm.
And si- but there's also advantages to digital music because of that. And I think
Right.
that's kind of where recorded music came from. And this comes to like a
Mm,
deeper conversation where like analog analog is for live. Like music,
Yeah.
there's this whole tradition everywhere in the world for tens of thousands of years of people making music in their own community, analog live for people. And then
Mm,
only in the last less than 100 years has recorded music been the primary way that people like consume music.
mm,
So we're it kind of looks like, oh, these two are coexisting peacefully. It's like, no, not at all. We're still very much figuring out like what are the consequences of using digital music, using recorded music, being able to sit down on the computer, and even though you can't play an instrument and didn't listen to music and didn't study music theory, you can
mm.
sit down and make your own song. Like you could sample another record, you could just have a plugin make a chord progression for you. You could
Right.
make a song that has no chords. It's only about like the drums and some kind of simple bass line. And it's like both a blessing and a curse because a lot of my favorite music is not classical or jazz. It's very electronic. It's like Jay Dilla. It's like Pete Rock. It's like hip hop producers who were reinterpreting
Mm,
like they're you don't listen to them because they can play the instrument like they're it's like much more up here. It's much more of a mental thing. And I think
mm,
digital tools allow music making to it like removes the obstacles to making music, and so it lets more people into the process. It lets people who have different ideas and a different background than
mm.
someone who's spent their whole life studying an instrument, studying like what music is great, what music is great 50 years ago, 200 years ago, blah blah blah. You can be someone who has a totally different experience and way of thinking about things, and you can sit down and make music, and now you can get that on the internet and it can go viral and it can change your life. But it's also led to like most of the music being like very surface level in a lot of ways when it comes to the craft, right?
Mm, mm.
Like there's a lot of really good art being made,
Right.
but a lot of it is lacking in the craft. And like we're like really great hip hop producers, they're masters of their craft, like the like having to sample a record, sampling a specific part of a record, and also using a lot of these older pieces of tech like the MPC, for example. Like it was way harder for them. They didn't have music, unlimited music on the internet. They had to go find the vinyl. They had to take that vinyl, they had to find a 4 second portion of the vinyl, record it directly into the MPC, which had like
Mm,
20 or 40 seconds of memory or whatever it was back then. And then they had to like chop it to the pads and use, and like that is the art. That's what you're admiring when you're hearing the music. Like that's the craft rather. And I can respect that as someone who is a craftsman musically, but I think a lot of art being made today, the craft has nothing to do with it,
mm,
right?
mm.
It's just like pure art being translated to most people who don't care about the craft. And low key maybe never even did, but that's a whole nother conversation, that's a whole nother question.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I think like a lot of what you're hearing today is the inevitability of digital, but analog will never die. Like you're hearing, how can we combine those two modalities into music that satisfies, kind of hits both sets of pros. You
Mm,
know what I mean? And I
mm.
think maybe that's what I would love to try and do. That's what a lot of my peers and the people I look up to, I presume, have been trying to do or doing, kind of subconsciously.
Right.
And it's led to a lot of music that I think is like really dope,
Mm, mm.
So it's cool.
What are your thoughts on, well, you did mention about sampling a great deal about, mediocrity when it comes to craft, but in the world of electronic music or hip hop, who are some of the people who stand out for you?
Who are dope?
Yeah.
Man, I mean, like Anomaly is great, Tennyson is great, K Tronada is great.
Kate Ranada was
There's
here in India last
Yeah,
week. Yeah.
I was rinsing 99.9%, bro, back when that came out. That was
Right.
awesome. And
Right.
that Katra's a cool example of like, I don't know if he played any of the instruments on any of the songs,
Mm.
or if he did, if he was like really like, let me sit down and bust out this whole thing, but like that's not the craft there. Like it's
Right.
like the mixing, it's the sound selection, it's the composition, the song form, it's like the sequencing of the album, it's like his rhythm, like his feel, like I can really respect that music, even though it doesn't have like the craziest chords or like people ripping solos. Like it would be worse if it had me sitting in on that those sessions. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he did a great job.
Mm.
Um, Hiatus Coyote, man, knowledge, bro. Knowledge is to me like the next Dilla. That's how
Mm.
I feel about knowledge. He's like living Dilla, just with how prolific he is and how distinct his sound is and how
Yeah.
influential he is to a lot of the people that I know and I work with. And like, hey, it took Dilla a long time to like really get into more of like the mainstream,
Mm.
and knowledge is already kind of there. Like no worries working with Anderson and just all the different shit that he does. Like he goes crazy. Um Man, I mean lots of different music. McGee is another good example of like taking digital sounds, digital music making. Like a lot of his sounds are like, I'm gonna run this through a Tascam and then I'm gonna run it through this VG8 guitar synthesizer that is like super, super digital. And
Mm.
it's like this combination of the analog and the digital worlds in a way that's super satisfying to us because we are used to digital sounds. We like digital sounds, and it's not, you shouldn't just listen to one kind of music, man. You know what I mean? You get bored. Like it's cool to have all this stuff you can listen to. But it's clear in like McGee's music, yo, he listened to there's like a basis. There's like a historical basis for this music. It's like the next step of like the 80s sound, and a lot of
Mm.
those sounds they were using, a lot of the kind of song forms and melodies they were using.
Right.
But it's like totally like rearranged and reproduced to sound really new and really cool. And
Mm.
it's like again, he's not going crazy on the chords playing like sharp 11 altered bullshit. Like it's the writing, it's the sound design, and it's so appropriate for the vibe he's going for. So cats like that are super inspirational to me just because they're like they're really making it sound great, right? And I think that's something that gets slept on by a lot of people who learn music, definitely including me. I feel like the sound is the last thing I started feeling was important, but now I feel it's the most important thing.
Mm.
Because if it sounds like old, then it doesn't matter what you're writing. That's the problem with jazz, in my opinion,
Right.
is that cats are using all these new chords, all these new techniques when they're improvising, all these new whatevers, but it sounds exactly the same as like the 60s and 70s, man. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And that's
Mm.
boring to people. There's only so much, like you can do so much more with these tools to get it in front of people in a way that will kind of get into their ear, get into their brain, and that will make them be like, oh, let me search for more. I think that's what made me, fall in love with jazz, was hearing songs where I was like, man, that was so amazing. I need to go find 100 more of these like as soon as possible.
Right.
Um, and I think the creativity of the sound design has really fallen off in jazz, and I think that's part of why so few people listen to it today versus these newer styles. I mean, it's not like there are so many really talented players, older cats in that world who just don't care about making their sound like more electronic, which is fine. That's what they want to
Mm.
do. It's
Mm.
cool, but
Mm.
you can't get mad when no one wants to hear it, I guess. I don't know.
Well, talking about this whole idea of building identity, when was it that you had that thing, sorted out in terms of the direction that you want to head in terms of your own sound? And of course, like how did the compositional element also kick in, uh, wherein you had all of your ideas come into play in terms of the music that we hear?
Yeah, yeah. So I think maybe to answer this question, let me rewind a bit. I mentioned that I went to college and didn't study music.
Right.
So I was still doing music stuff in at the college that I went to. I was in like jazz band and jazz combos and in this like R&B group that would get together after classes called After Six, and we just like learn Jill Scott tunes and play them at bars around college
Mm.
town. But like my freshman year of college, I got super into jazz and was just like only listening to jazz, only shedding jazz on
Right.
saxophone, learning about a lot of new artists from my friends there. Um, And then I just started making other friends, and we would go on drives. We would go to Chipotle, and I would be playing my jazz music, and they, didn't care. Like, they didn't want to insult me and be like, yo, this shit sucks. But I could tell they weren't really like into it. And then I found Robert Glasper's album Black Radio,
Mm-hmm.
and I got super into that and played that for them, and they were like, "Oh shit, like play that one again, like rewind that, bro. I need to hear." And I was like, "Oh, this is like kind of jazz to me too. Like obviously it's not like, swinging straight ahead. I'm going to solo for 8 minutes on the piano and then acoustic bass solo. Everyone loves that. But it had a lot of what I loved about jazz in it, and
Mm.
my friends fucked with it. So that kind of got me thinking like, yo, I've been playing classical and jazz music my whole life, and like none of my friends gave a fuck. Why don't I try making music that people actually like? And that will allow me to like relate to those people about this thing that I love, instead of it being like a part of my personality, a part of what I do that I don't share with anyone really. Because who, like, no, they're like, oh, that's cool. You won that competition. It's like, no, I'm going to sit down and like play this song for you that I made, and you're going to love it. Like, that's what I wanted. And so that kind of got me that. And also just like the Robert Glasper, like the direction he moved in general, where he was kind of modernizing jazz. Because, I mean, if you think about it, jazz, like a lot of the standards of jazz were pop songs. They
Mm.
were like Broadway musical songs. They were like Los Angeles Hollywood film songs. They were pop songs. They
Right.
took pop compositions of the day, took them to jazz clubs, took them to whorehouses, and just started, making them crazy, like turned them into jazz basically. And so why can't we do that today? Like, jazz dies when we stop updating the repertoire. You know what I mean?
Of
Like, the
course.
more we can integrate songs that people actually know about, the more that you can create a meaningful relationship with the person listening. Like, they can't, if you don't know the song in jazz, you
Mm.
can't be involved. That's what jazz is all about. Is we're going to play the song for you
Yeah.
in the first chorus. That's the melody. That's the head. This is
Mm.
this is the song. The song is not, that's this, not the solo, right? The song is just those 32 bars at the top. So what's this other 10 minutes? It's all the ways that this particular band is going to improvise over the song you just heard. So
Mm.
like, if people don't care about the song they just heard, who's going to care about how you improvise over it? I think that's kind of the one of the recipes that's been lost in jazz, that like in a big way Glasper got really famous and wealthy and influential from bringing back. He was like, let me actually take songs that people who are alive now and want to buy tickets and go out and drink, like, let me play songs that they know and that they like. And then they're going to be involved when I start improvising over it and showing them all the different ideas that I have over
Mm.
this song that they like. Um, so I kind of forget the original question you asked.
No.
Like kind of
Yeah.
original identity. I mean, yeah, it was
Right.
that in a
Yeah.
big way, and also just being sick of playing other people's songs, man. Classical and jazz, they never teach you how to write a song. In
Mm.
20 years of learning classical and jazz, I was never once taught how to write a song, which is like the entire basis of music,
Right.
at least of recorded music. Maybe like the vast majority of musical traditions were not about that. They were about like taking a song that exists and you learn it from like people older than you, and you continue to play those songs, and the
Mm.
way you play them changes over time. But that's just not how the world is anymore. Things move
Mm.
so fast. You can communicate data so fast. Um, and there's so much more room for your own creativity, for writing your own song, versus like at any time in the past, right? So I think I was like, all right, all this stuff on music, like I'm kind of bored of playing other people's songs, and I'm bored of playing in this sound that I've been playing in for 20 years, albeit not well for most of that time. I was a little kid, but still, it's like, let me try messing around with stuff that sounds more like the other music that I like that's not classical and jazz. Like, let me try bringing in some of these influences, because every you ask any jazz musician, what music do you like that's not jazz? Any good jazz musician is going to be able to list all this shit that's not jazz. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because
Yeah.
why would you be doing music? How could you be good at music if you're not curious about what is out there?
Mm.
You
Mm.
know?
Mm.
So I just got curious and started messing around and experimenting and posting it online, and one thing led to the next, and now I'm here talking to you, man.
We've come a long way, you know, in terms of this particular idea.
Yeah.
Uh, that being said, in terms of defining something such as authorship in the world of Jazztronica, where looping and repetition replace the traditional narrative soloing that one gets to listen to. Right. So, could you throw some light on that, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think something like Jazztronica, I mean, first of all, I'll say that genre is not a great descriptor of music. It gives you some amount of information, like the general sound and approach you can expect, but there are so many differences between any number of artists who are considered to be a part of the same genre.
Mm,
So when you look at something like Jazztronica, consider there's like a lot of kinds of music, a big range of music and approaches that falls under that umbrella. And I think it depends on the person. It depends on the exact kind of music they're trying to make. Um, like Anomaly, I definitely hear his music in like festivals, right? It's
mm,
something that could sit in a festival where more traditional EDM music is being played, but he's like the most killing musician there, actually ripping on keys at the same time. Versus like Daniel Hain, Israel Strom, Noah Denton, like they're going crazy with the chords. It's much less like EDM and much more like kind of fusion, like hip hop,
mm,
like kind of some kind of hip hop, drum and bass, jazz fusion, and way different chords, way different song structure. I think there is certainly a lot of that music has some level of repetition, but like there's repetition, like jazz is repetition. Like there's even more repetition in the average jazz recording than there is in a Jazztronica song, just on
mm.
song structure alone. Like most famous jazz recordings are literally just head like the song form 38 times through and then a 2 bar outro. And it's like, dude, in a 1 3 minute Jazztronica song, you can have like a verse, a pre-chorus, a chorus, an extended solo section, like so many different things happening. I definitely reject the idea that Jazztronica is more repetitive
Mm,
in some kind of absolute way. I think there are certain things that when you use electronic music production techniques, a lot of them are built on repetition because a lot of the earlier techniques were built on repetition just from the limitations of the hardware and software you had. But then people came and used those in a creative way to make like new genres of music. Hip hop is a good example of this. I think hip hop is repetitive in the sense that maybe the same 4 bar sample could be happening several times in a row, but
mm,
it's like the exact placement of every single element of that sample is so much different than if you had a live band play it. And the repetition itself is a part of the art, right?
mm,
It's the
mm.
fact that you're hearing that sample the exact same way every single time through that makes hip hop sound like it does. That's why people like it, right? Um, so I think a lot of elements in Jazztronica that are repetitive in the same way, it's reflective of that, right? Like that's just a different way of listening to music. And I think it would be a mistake to compare it to jazz because it's apples and oranges,
Of
right?
course.
They're two
Yeah.
totally different things. The point of jazz is to perform something live and improvise on it a different way each time. The point of Jazztronica really is to make a record that sounds a certain way every single time you play it. So those two people doing those two things are going to value radically different things in the like recording of the music, the performance of the music, the like formation of the music.
Mm,
And I think that's kind of what's cool about making electronic music as someone who plays an analog instrument and who is trained in like analog music is like you can kind of take a lot of these concepts and test them out in an electronic environment and hear what that does to the concept. And maybe someone will stumble upon something like, sampling like hip hop, who knows? It's way more exciting to do that than it is to play traditional jazz just because you already know what's going to happen when you play traditional
mm,
jazz,
mm.
which a lot of traditional jazz people would say is the exact opposite. Like you never know what's going to happen when you sit down and play the song, which is kind of ironic. You kind of always know how it's generally going to sound, and that's not exciting. If you go onto like a jazz playlist on Spotify, it's all going to be the same instruments, man. A
Mm.
drum set, upright bass, piano, like horns, and it's like, dude, like zoom out a little bit. I know y'all are super super focused, like dialed in on this like range of elements,
Right.
but I think if you just widen your perspective a little bit and also find music, find electronic music that you actually like too. A lot of
Mm,
these really hardcore jazz cats, like I think they kind of vibe a lot of electronic music.
right.
Plenty of them don't. Plenty of them don't. Plenty
Of
of them
course.
love electronic music. I don't want to generalize, but definitely in my experience, especially in like education and in a lot of jazz communities, a lot of this music is kind of vibed and seen as like
Mm.
low skill floor music, and like, exactly what I said earlier about it. So I think people write it off for that reason, but I think that's kind of what makes it badass, you know?
Of course, as you rightly pointed out, a lot of factors are critical to determine someone's interest. When it comes to music, a lot of them are active listeners. They like to just listen to music when they're doing it, and some of them like to do a lot of other things and
Exactly.
have it like passive in the background, right? So consumption is varied, and there is no clear cut formula to identifying habits like listening habits. People are doing a lot of research on that, right? But then, coming to my point, you also pointed out that someone like Anomalies music would fit into a certain context, and then
Uh-huh.
a couple of other artists that you mentioned, you said that their artist would fit into something like the mainstream. Would you categorize your music to be part of mainstream music today, or where does it fit in exactly?
Not
Uh,
today, man. We'll see in the future. But
mm,
sorry for
mm.
cutting you off there, by the way.
Yeah, that's okay.
I I think that the mainstream is really like breaking down
Uh,
in a big way. I think that a lot of people's attention has become radically decentralized
mm,
in the last 30 years. Like I'm 33, man. I was born in 92. I
okay.
remember when no one had phones that had YouTube on it,
Right,
right? I
right.
remember when a phone was for calling people,
Mm,
right? That's what
mm.
you could do with a phone. Is you could call someone, then texting. You could text people with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like the
Of course,
numeral key,
yeah. The
and
Nokia
it's like
phones that we
you
had.
can't even really have an actual conversation with those things unless you get like there are some people who can go super fast on them, but you're not giving your mom that phone and then she can send you the grocery list. Like, so I remember when there was like an actual mainstream, like there is like these huge labels and huge TV studios and like cable TV, and there's like one place, like you go to the radio or you go to Walmart and get a CD, and that's how you can hear music,
Of course,
right?
of
And
course.
now that's just totally not the case. The mainstream, I would argue, doesn't even exist anymore. Like
Mm.
major labels are fucking scrolling through TikTok trying to find people who go viral and sign them to a record deal. That should tell you everything you need to know. The labels can't do it anymore. They don't know how to do it. Like
Mm.
it's up to the artist because we can reach people. That's the
Sure.
relationship is between the artist and the listener.
Mm.
So I don't even care about the mainstream. I hope I'm never in the mainstream. You know, what do I want to be opening for Taylor Swift, bro? I'm good on that. Her audience is not going to like that. I think
I'm
that
glad you're frank about that. Yeah.
a lot of what you're hearing now musically is a direct result of that too. A lot of musicians love to bitch and moan about Spotify and the internet, and
Mm.
that's valid. That's valid. We should talk about it. But it's also the like the singular thing that has made music so much better in the last 30 years. Like
True.
maybe not what most people are listening to most of the time, but if
Right.
you are tapped in, you
Mm-hmm.
can find like the craziest shit that you would never even be able to hear or record in the 90s. You know
Mm.
what I
Mm.
mean? Like it would be
Mm.
so much harder to get this underground music to people.
Yeah.
And now people can release underground music that doesn't sound mainstream, and they can
Mm.
get hundreds of thousands of followers. They can pack out 500,000 cap, 3,000 cap rooms with it. They can like sell merch off of it. They can do all sorts of things and actually like build a good life around that. And I
Mm.
think that that's like a really cool thing. Because like a mainstream, I think it would be interesting to hear how something like you take all the great jazz players from the 60s and 70s and drop them in today. Like what kind of music are they making, you know? I
Mm.
guarantee you not all of them are making jazz. If you drop them all when they're 20 in 2026, they're going to be pirating Fruity Loops and making trap beats. They're going to be experimenting with that shit, you know? Cuz that's just what I know geniuses who make music that you would think is like easy to make, but it's not.
Mm. Mm.
So and a lot of those cats are really super like tapped into composition, even though they're not maybe writing or performing a lot of their own songs. You
Right.
have to like that's what improvisation is composition,
Mm.
right? They're like writing new stuff. So I think they would be super into like this new modality of like creating and arranging like with technology. It's almost like look at Jacob Collier.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he's able to do that in his room, like 500 tracks in a project and put that on the
Madness.
internet and have people go crazy for it is like
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's incredible. Like you would not be able to pitch that to a record label in
Mm.
1974 and have them
Of
approve that
course.
project
Of course.
to release and to press and market. Like so it's kind of a really interesting time to be in music because of that. Because you can make something that's not mainstream, but there's levels to it, right? Like, yeah, maybe you're not like Kendrick level famous or SZA level famous, but you can still be, you know, making you can still buy a house off of
Like
this
your own
shit if you
community. Yeah,
have
of
people
course.
exactly. And that's way better because then you get to actually interact with them on a like more intimate level. You get to like
Yeah.
get to know people. You get to be a part of a smaller community that's more kind of tailored to your own interests and your own opinions. And it's a beautiful thing, man. I'm really thankful that anyone has, you know, listened to my music or hit me up to thank me or anything like that. Like it's a blessing to be able to do this. So it's cool.
Marvelous. Marvelous. Uh, I'd like to now, unveil or unravel more of your identity to the people through the music that you've already put out, starting with, you know, uh, loading, right? So, your artistic vision probably is revealing a certain amount of your identity when it comes to this particular release, right? So, do you see the piano as the storytelling voice of this EP, and how does it interact with the EP's other musical elements?
Yeah, I'll be real about that record. I released that in what was it, April 2017 or 2018, whenever I released it. I
Right.
had started producing and writing music maybe like 3 months before that.
Okay.
Um, so I was just super new to it, and it was after this trip I took to LA where I watched one of my friends, Paul Castelluzzo, just like producing beats. Like he'd wake up, like write his own song in Logic, and then go out and eat a burrito and hang with some
Mm,
friends. And I was like,
mm,
at the time I was in grad school for pharmacology, and I
uh-huh.
was like, man, this looks way more fun than what I'm doing. I'm gonna drop out of grad school and like make my own music.
Okay.
Um, and so I came back from that to Buffalo, New York, where I was going to grad school.
Okay.
And I dropped out of grad school and just bought Ableton,
Nice.
bought Keyscape, and a couple other plugins that I had been shown in LA, and just started like making ideas. And I was like, I want to release something on 420, so I'm just gonna work on a bunch of songs,
Mm,
and whatever's done by 420, I'm just gonna release it. And that's what I did. I like just worked on these songs up until like including the day of April 20th, you know? Like it wasn't like I people do now. We're like, all right, the record we just recorded it. Now we're gonna get it mixed for a month, and then we're gonna think about the art, and then we're gonna put it on the distributor 3 months early, and then have a
right.
pitch campaign and do all this. I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna drop it. Like, let's go, might as well.
Yeah.
So of course I had been playing piano at that time for way longer than I had been
Mm,
like producing drums, playing bass sounds,
mm.
doing FX, like mixing, mastering all this production stuff. I was like very, very new, very fresh at it.
Okay.
And so because of that, a lot of the songs, a lot of that music relies heavily on piano, where
Mm.
like I made a drum loop and then wrote the piano part and then just filled out the rest of the parts the best I could. Um, which is definitely a very interesting sound. It definitely sounds different because of that. But it was fun. And I learned a lot. And I think I learned a lot, particularly from having that out and then coming back to it later and like thinking about how I felt about it. And, that definitely influenced the way that I would write and release music in the future.
Mm.
But yeah, I think because of that, like like a lot of the meat is in the piano part, right?
Mm.
Everything
Mm.
else was just, I was just like putting backing tracks,
Sure,
like
sure.
backing track vibes, like a drum loop that I would mess around and cut a little bit and like play a bass part with like a default patch that just matched the piano part and all this stuff. But it was a lot of fun. It was cool.
If you had to put down a list of things which would be part of Rob Araujo's cookbook for mixing, right? When I say mixing, literally music-based mixing, right? So, how do you decide what jazz harmonies or improvisational elements to mix with, say, hip hop beats or electronic textures? Take us through some of those ideas. You've had in some of your music.
Yeah, I mean drums are the most important element of all electronic music.
Mm,
Unless it's electronic music that has no drums, like
mm,
ambient music or like whatever. But
mm,
generally, the drums, like the most important elements of any electronic song,
mm,
and therefore all mainstream music today, is the singer, which is the main melody, and then the kick and the snare.
mm.
Those three things are the loudest things in every single mix on every single song you can look up that was made in the last 20 years. That's not like specifically a genre from the past,
Okay.
right?
Mm,
And there's a number of reasons for that. If you go back to jazz, if you look at jazz, where does the time from jazz come from? It comes from the upright bass and from the ride cymbal. And the kick and the snare are largely just doing accents, doing, all this other cool stuff, responding to the solos, whatever. But that's different. You look at music now where the time comes from is the kick and the snare. The kick one and three, snare two and four, versus like one, two, three, four in both the ride cymbal and the acoustic bass in jazz. So and if you listen to jazz, the three loudest elements are whatever the melody is, like the horn,
mm-hmm.
uh, the upright bass, and the ride cymbal. Like everything else is softer than those things. So those have to be the loudest things, the simplest things that keep the time, and the most memorable series
Yeah.
of notes, which is the melody. Harmony is not as easily remembered. You can't sing a harmony by
Mm,
yourself unless you're
mm.
Mongolian. Um, but because of that, I think that's one of the things that makes Jazztronica so different is that it's a way different way of mixing. Like instead of having because like a ride cymbal and an upright bass don't have the same punch that the kick and the snare in modern electronic music has. So if
Okay.
you listen to a lot of jazztronica music, the kick and the snare are going to be mixed much more like comparable modern electronic music
Mm,
versus at the level of jazz. Like music's just gotten louder, right? Things are more compressed. So when you have a kick and a snare that is that loud in the mix, you just play differently. You play more rhythmically. Um, and it's a different kind of rhythm than like playing along to the quarter note of the bass, right? Where maybe you're
right.
focusing more on syncopation, more on like, all other kinds of stuff. But I think a lot of where I start is with this like basic texture, this basic like kick and snare in
Mm,
there, and maybe like
mm,
another perk or two to
mm,
kind of get like, yo, what's the vibe that I'm playing to? Like that's the ride and the upright bass. That's like, all right, play the groove, like play the time, and then that's what you write the song within. But the advantage is that a kick and a snare, like a upright bass, has to play notes of the song, whereas a kick and a snare don't. You can just loop them forever. So then I can come in and start with the piano and take it anywhere.
Right.
Um, I think also, I think one other thing, another thing that's a consequence of producing electronically, um, is that you can arrange way more. Like
Mm,
when you're playing in a jazz setting, there's only a few people there on stage. There's only a few parts, right? But in an electronic song, you might have 50, 100, 200 different parts, right? Which is the equivalent of having like multiple orchestras on stage, and each person has a different part to play. You know what
mm,
I mean?
mm, mm.
So as you add more density, as you add more of these parts, especially ones that are playing notes, they all have to work together, right? So it becomes a lot harder to arrange a song that is going to all these different directions versus like if you're staying in kind of one place generally for an amount of time and then maybe going to a different place, that is like what this music is. It's loop based. You know what I mean?
Mm,
You want to be
mm.
put into a pocket. That's why hip hop works, because the exact drum loop and exact sample, specific sample that's being used is like making a certain pocket, a certain feel, and it's for
Yeah.
just repeating that. It's putting you into that pocket. So any electronic music, like most of the electronic music I've heard, like relies on that. Like
Mm.
that's kind of what electronic music can do that no human can do, no matter how good they are. You could have a band of John Coltrane's. They're not going to be able to play a sample the exact same way every time, like in a
Of
hip
course.
hop beat,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
And so we make electronic music. Let's take advantage of that
Mm.
and not try to make something that sounds exactly like jazz, but something that sounds more electronic, something that if you were a regular listener and you've listened to all this other music, you could hear this and engage with the song. You understand the song. Like you know the song in that sense. You know the sound, you know what is supposed to happen. You know the language of, oh, we're high passing the mix and taking out elements and then that leads to a part where the bass comes in really loud. Like that's the drop. Like everyone knows that. You've learned that
Mhm.
like sentence
Yeah.
already. So when you can play like around a listener's expectations like that, they're in the music. Like they're really loving the music. And
Mm.
so like using that language, applying that language over the language that we know from classical and jazz and just combining it, doing all sorts of different combinations and then being super active about your listening and like, oh, this one I did sucks. Oh, this one I did is fire. Let me take this and build a song around it and see where this goes. I think that's kind of one thing that's super exciting about making music electronically. That of course that kind of same phenomenon is in jazz and classical, but in totally different way,
Mm.
for totally different reasons.
I think the beauty lies in how you seamlessly blend the acoustic piano with a lot of these electronic textures, ensuring that the boundary disappears, right? Uh, in terms of the end product that a listener gets to hear. Is that a conceptual goal or simply the end result of your workflow?
Well, you want it to sound good. The goal isn't necessarily to do that. It's just, I think for a lot, for me and for a lot of other people, it comes from like, oh, I want to, it's not even like, oh, let me do all this science to figure out how can we combine piano with this. It's just like, I play piano and I like electronic music. Can I
Right.
put these together? And then you try it for a while and most of it sucks until you find something that is great. And then you're
Mm,
like, oh, cool. Let me do that more. Let me build on that.
mm,
Um,
mm.
and that's an exciting process because it's like so experimental. You never know what you're gonna get. Um, it's gambling. It's fun. It's fun to gamble, bro. We all love gambling, like video games,
Yeah.
like just board games, like any kind of thing where you can like wager something and see if it pays off is super satisfying to us.
Mm.
Um, but I think it just comes from, yo, I can play piano. A lot of people start by being able to play piano. Usually you're not like, I'm gonna mix the piano and electronic production. Now let me learn piano and electronic production.
Right.
Usually you're really good at one of those things or you care about it a lot and you're like, I'm bored of this. Let me combine it with something else and
Mm.
see if this is exciting to me. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And see if it can help me grow.
Mm.
Um, so I think that's what it was for me. I mean, of course I can't speak for everyone in the world, but I'd assume that's kind of like the thought process generally.
Got it. Uh, in terms of the mixes, they feel very three-dimensional, especially having the piano as the center of, the other musical elements. How do you think about spatial depth, reverb, delay, stereo image, emotionally rather than from a technical standpoint?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not, the best mix master engineer in the world. So
Yeah.
it's all creative at the end of the day. There's certainly better ways to accomplish what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do than how I do it.
Mm,
But, in a big way that gives you a unique sound. I would say like of course certain elements have to be up front. Like I said, if you listen to hip hop, the kick, the snare, the vocal, the
mm,
kick, the snare, the melody in R&B, so like that's what's got to be up front in electronic music. It's not going to fuck if that's not there like right in the front. It's not going to make sense to people who like that music
mm.
if you don't give them all this stuff that makes it sound like this music, but it's not because of these things,
Okay.
right? So like kick, snare, whatever the melody is, that's always in the front. That's always the loudest. That's always like, yo, if I can't hear that and feel that on the phone, then it's not loud enough. It's not saturated enough. And then there's like a bunch of other stuff, like filling that out, like really understanding. If you understand that that's what the song is, everything else needs to like contribute to that sounding cool,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So the kick and the snare generally is it can give you the feel. Maybe it's straight and you're giving feel with like other percussion, but like also how the melody plays around the kick and the snare can give you feel, and that gives you the chords, that gives you all this other stuff, and it's like, all right, I have this stuff. And you might not write it in that order either. A
Mm,
lot of the time I'll write chords first and then melody later,
mm,
but I a lot of the time will like change the chords I write based on where I want the melody to go. Like I'm like, oh, now that I'm writing this melody, I hear it going to this place and it would be cool if it actually went to this chord instead. So I think like the melody and the like core feel of it, like you got to nail that maybe, and
mm,
then just filling everything out in terms of like the EQ, like frequency spectrum, filling everything out in terms of width, like those elements have to be like more or less centered, but then you can fill out left and right with different parts, and you can fill out front and back with different parts using reverb too.
okay.
Um, but I think really I don't care too much about mixing because my personal opinion with my music is that like the song is either good or bad. Like a good mix and master and like creative production techniques can definitely elevate a song like far beyond where it currently is,
Mm,
right?
mm,
But it can't make a bad song good. So I was
mm,
like, let me just focus on trying to write songs that I really like. And then once I have those, I'll figure out how to mix them later. Or get someone who's way better than me at mixing and producing to help me with the stuff. So um, I kind of focus more on like writing and playing the piano part and being that kind of person. But the mix and the master, like in the production, those are all like super interesting things that when I see someone who is like way above my level messing with it, I'm like, man, I wish I could do this at this level. Like it would change a lot. But it's also cool to just do your own thing and let other people in on the project and put their own opinions into it, put their own work into it, and just see what happens. And that's going to be something that you couldn't do by yourself, even if you were that good.
mm.
So, yeah, man.
Right. Let's talk about the upcoming tour, which is yet to be announced in India, and it'll soon be. Of course, you are playing with Jack Gardiner, Henrik Linder, and a phenomenal group that has been put together. Could you talk to me about how this entire project came to fruition, and when were you called to join this band? And talk to me about what are you thinking in terms of the set list, and where do you fit in? I have multiple set of questions, right? Where do you also fit in a super group like this?
Yeah, so this is actually a funny story.
Uh-huh.
Um, the drummer on this tour is this young cat named Porter Blakey,
Right.
and he's super killing, California native. Um, we're working on a bunch of other music together
Okay.
right now. Like as of a couple months ago,
Right.
we've been just getting up and jamming and recording stuff together and trying to write some songs with our boys Case and Chris Wallace. But because we had been, doing some sessions together, I had actually set up this dinner in LA at this restaurant called Roots Indian Bistro, bro. It's this
Wow.
killing Indian food spot in
Nice.
Los Angeles. And one of my friends from he is lives in North Carolina but goes between there, LA, and New York City. Sean Ramaprasad.
Uh-huh.
He was in town for like a week, and he laid some strings on my upcoming album that's dropping March 6th, 2026. And you can
Okay.
buy the vinyl on this tour. But side note,
Sweet.
I was like, let me set up this dinner with you and a bunch of the homies so we can hang before you leave. Where do you want to go? He's like, I know this crazy Indian spot called Roots. And I was like, man, I've heard about that a bunch of times. I actually have to get out there. Like, let's do it. So we
Mm.
met up with a bunch of people there, and I invited Porter. And Porter pulled up and he loved the food, but he was like, yo, this guy just hit me up who wants to hire me for this tour for this guitarist Jack Gardner, and he was looking for keys players, and I put your name in, and I was like, oh, that's why I got that text from Chris. Okay, fire. So ironically, the not maybe not the cause that I'm on this tour, the cause of me being on this tour, but like happenstance was because of dope ass Indian food that we ate in
Of
LA.
course, yeah.
Um,
Nothing beats Indian
regarding
food.
the set list, any specific details about the tour, of course, I'm not at liberty to divulge that information at this time.
Fair
All I
enough.
can say
Fair.
is that it's going to be super, super exciting. All of the players in the band are not only fantastic musicians, but like really fantastic people too. Jack is a super nice guy, super considerate, maybe like one of the nicest guys I've ever worked for.
Mm.
And everyone else on the tour, everyone else who's like gonna play or plan on this shit has just been super on it, like
Okay.
working really hard and just trying to make everything work. Um, and we have a bunch of stuff in the works
Mm.
for this for these shows. All I can say is this is a show that may never happen again, ever with
Oh,
this band.
wow.
Because who knows? People, this industry, man, things change. Porter goes and gets a gig with whoever, and he can't do the Jack tour the next time he hits him up. You never know, bro. Henrik is in fucking dirty loops. That guy's busy as fuck, man. And it's like a big reason why a lot of us are going out. In addition to really like loving Jack's music, is because we're going to a lot of different places in Asia.
Sure.
A lot of places I haven't been to before, like India, Vietnam, Thailand. Uh, Man, we're going to Australia and maybe New Zealand. I've never been there before. China, I've never been there before. The food's going to be crazy. So it's like, yo, it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. But, the consequence of playing with it, playing with a group of people who already have their own stuff going on is you never know what their schedule is going to be. It
Totally.
was maybe a once in a lifetime kind of lineup to
Uh-huh.
get this particular mix of cats. So you do not want to miss the show. We're going to be rehearsing. We're going to be putting together a crazy set list with a bunch of people's music. Maybe not just Jack's, but some others as well. You'll have to pull up to the shows to see what's up. But it's going to be an incredible run in India, man. And I can't wait to play these shows. And I can't wait to eat some incredible Indian food, bro. Oh my
Saying,
God.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd be happy to host you and do round two of this live podcast right before your show. I'm
Let's
looking
do
forward to
it,
that.
bro. I'm with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. In the interest of time, I'd like to come to the last part of our agenda, which is a quick rapid fire.
Let's do it.
First question for you, Rob. What is that one song that always makes you cry?
Oh, man. Let me go on Spotify real quick. You're putting me on the spot right now, bro. Um, Dude, I don't even know, man. I don't even know. Yeah, I just went through all 30 of the songs I know, and I couldn't think of one that makes me cry. So,
Do you have a favorite guilty pleasure song?
guilty pleasure song. No song is guilty, bro. I'm not guilty of listening to any music, bro. But
Nice.
maybe society would want me to feel guilty for listening to Dave Blunts, bro. But that's my guy. That's my goat, man. Let's go.
Mm. If you had the superpower of putting together an all-star, Jazztronica band together, and you had the power of bringing the dead back to life, who would you like to be a part of this dream band of yours?
I want Michael Jackson on every instrument.
Crazy, crazy. What's your favorite cuisine?
Man, it's either Japanese or New York Italian.
Right.
But hey, man, we'll see. I'm coming to India. It might become my new favorite cuisine. India's up there, bro. They're in the top 10. We'll see.
Nice,
They might make a move.
nice. What are the top three records that you're most proud of in terms of your contribution?
Well, I don't have too much music out. I have an album dropping in March of 2026 that I think is the best thing I've ever made because I
Wow,
included a lot of my friends on it who are musicians I really respect and people I really respect. And I'm super excited to share this record. I think a lot of the stuff on there is like my favorite music I've ever made.
marvelous,
So I'm really excited for that to come out. I would say that record.
nice. Mhm. If you had to describe your experience being on my podcast, how would you describe it?
It was chill, man. It was a good time. I had a good time.
I'm glad. I have one last question for today, Rob. Down in the distant horizon, what would you like to be remembered as?
I want to be remembered as uh someone who I don't know, never went to the Diddy parties, like never bought into the industry shit and
Nice.
like always tried to be real, like form real relationships. There's a lot of fake shit
Uh-huh.
in this music industry in LA, and it's like I only want to work with people I have genuine connection with. So I just want people to feel like I didn't blow smoke up their ass, like I'm not just being nice to you cuz I want something from you. Like if I fuck with you, you'll know. If I don't fuck with you, you'll know faster, bro. So I just want to be known as maybe being real.
Marvelous. That's a great answer for a closure. This interview will be aired on two incredible radio stations in the northeastern part of India, on 98.3 Big FM Shillong and 92.7 Big FM Aizawl. I will be sure to share the posters once the radio show is out. And in addition to that, it'll also be out on my YouTube channel, Aditya Veera 1994. Thank you so much, Rob, once again for tuning in. It's been such an incredible blessing, honor, and a privilege.
It's my pleasure, man. Anytime you want to talk again, just hit me up. And I'm gonna
I
hold you to you showing me around some good food spots in Bangalore,
I,
bro.
I certainly will.